Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who is kind enough to join us today to learn about how to increase your sales operating system by building a sales process. And I'm super excited to have you with us, Liz, today. Liz Heiman, please say hello.
Hi.
So Liz is not only one of the top sales thinkers and trainers behind a company called Regarding Sales, but she's been doing B2B sales training and teaching since I've been in sales. In fact, her father wrote the book on strategic selling, which inspired me to build Goldmine and build software around that process. So Liz, thank you for helping me to build Goldmine.
Oh, you're welcome. I wish I could claim credit, but yeah, my dad wrote a great book.
Let's go to your bio. So if you want to follow Liz, she's Liz R. Heiman on Twitter, and she's going to help us with our sales operating system, because as you can see by the questions, without a process, you're done. And for those that don't know me, here's my background. I've been building software for sales and relationships, it seems, all my life. I got started doing this because I struggled, like you all do, in building relationships that result in a mutually beneficial, measurable business outcome. And back in the day, there was no Outlook, there was no Salesforce, there was no tool to manage contacts other than a day timer. So I quit my job and built that, and lucky enough to retire at 40 and got back in the business as I started to use social and saw I was going to change the way that we work, play, buy, and sell. But that's a whole different story. We're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about how you can increase your sales. And before we do that, we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping. Next slide. So for those of you that want to learn more about how to use Nimble, there's daily Q&A sessions you can sign up for. There's also weekly training webinars, and we do these influencer webinars where you learn from experts like Liz, and you can sign up for those at nimble.com/company webinars. And so with that, let's get into the agenda, and Liz, take us away. Oh, before we do that, I'm so sorry. We all learn through questions, and we're going to be compiling questions in the background. Just put your questions into the same chat box that you put your location in. We'll be compiling those and answering them at the end. Thank you so much. Liz, let's rock and roll.
Thanks. So we're going to talk about building a B2B sales operating system to grow your business. And here are the things that I really want to talk about is, first is, how do you kill the chaos and get control of your sales? How do you position your company for sales success? We're going to talk about building a sales system that delivers results, and then effectively managing your team to get more sales. And so the focus of this is going to be this idea of a sales operating system. So how many of you feel like, and we already talked about this, I think 25% of you said that you felt like your sales was totally out of control. The word that a lot of CEOs use and founders use when they talk to me about this is that it is utter chaos, and that it's unpredictable. And it's really hard to grow a business when your sales are unpredictable. How do you know how much material to buy, how many people to hire, how many people you need to be prepared to onboard? How do you make these decisions to run your business when sales is out of control and chaotic and unpredictable? And while there's always a certain amount of the unknown in sales and the uncontrollable, we can get it a lot more in control, a lot more predictable, and a lot less chaotic when we build a sales operating system. So what typically happens for people, for owners, is they feel like we get these leads in and we throw them into this black box we call our sales organization. And we hope and we pray that something will come out the bottom and close, but we don't know what's coming out the bottom. We don't know when it's coming out the bottom. We don't know how much is coming out the bottom. And it's uncomfortable and it's scary as a sales leader. Whoops, I'm pushing the wrong direction. So my philosophy, my belief is that you should have visibility into the sales process. You should know what's going in the top. You should be able to understand what's being prospected, how it's being qualified, all the way through, and be able to estimate and predict and work with your sales team to know what revenue, what demands are coming out the bottom, because with revenue comes demands on your organization. You need to know the answer. So having visibility and understanding of that process, it gives you a lot more control and a lot more ability to grow your business effectively. So I want to talk about this idea. I'm really dangerous with buttons. People don't usually let me drive, John. So I want to talk about this idea of a sales operating system, and I want to take a second and look at this picture with you. And the idea that this person is holding this information in their hand, right? So it's not that you really have that much control, that it all fits in the palm of your hand, but the idea is that we should have at least some control. We should have some visibility. We should be able to see what's happening and be able to adjust as we need to get the outcomes that we need. So what I want you to do is keep this image in your mind as we're moving forward, because this is what you want. You want this to be under control. We don't want you to be anxious and worried and frustrated all the time. So when I talk about a sales operating system, I talk about things like strategies and frameworks, right? So a sales operating system is the strategies, the frameworks, and systems and processes, which I didn't put in there, that support sales. And when you support sales, you support your organization. So when I think about sales, I maybe think about it a little bit differently than other people do. A lot of people think about sales as this island out in the middle of the ocean that's separate from their organization. Those salespeople go out and sell. Get them to work out selling, but they're separate, they're apart. And I think of it differently. I think about our sales organization as being the heart of our business. And I know you're gonna go, no, Liz, my product is the heart of my business. And I'm gonna push back and say, I think your product is the soul of your business, but your sales team pumps the lifeblood through your business. Without sales, you have no money. And without money, you have no product. You can't do anything. So we need our sales organization to be at the heart, or to be the heart of our business, pumping the lifeblood through it. So when we think about it that way, then it becomes really important that everybody in our organization, whether they see themselves as part of sales or not, understands how this sales operating system that we're creating fits together. And they see the strategies and the frameworks and the systems to support the sales organization that's going to keep pumping lifeblood through our organization. And I would love to hear if you guys feel like that's not how you perceive it. And John, if you don't perceive it that way, I'd love to hear it. But that's my perception. John, what are your thoughts on that?
I just have to take myself off mute here. So the question was?
How do you feel about the idea that sales is really the heart of your organization, pumping the lifeblood through, and it can't be out separate, and then everybody has to see themselves as part of that sales organization?
Well, I think it's the age-old problem that you have in a larger business is that sales and marketing aren't really working effectively together as a team. That marketing generates leads and they throw them over the wall, and they think that salespeople don't do anything with them at all or anything effective. And sales basically says that marketing's leads are just crap. And but the reality is that they have to be working. There has to be a working, effective system where sales and marketing are working effectively together. But that also includes product and management as well. But this is one tip I want every salesperson listening to this today to do. You have to be your own marketer. You can't depend on marketing. You need to be building your brand and your network and generating your own leads on a regular basis, going back to people you sold to and getting referrals from them and generating net new leads by becoming the trusted advisor of your prospects, your customers, and their influencers as well.
I absolutely agree. Sales and marketing, it's critical not only that sales and marketing are in alignment, which is what we talk about, but sales and marketing need to be cooperating. And we can't, as salespeople, look over and go, that's marketing's job. And marketing, we can't go, well, I passed it to sales, I'm done. We have a synergy. We've got to be a team. And I want to push it further. It's not just a team of sales and marketing. What happens when accounting calls your client that you're in the middle of selling a $20 million sale to, and they're mad about a $5,000 bill that didn't get paid, and they pissed somebody off, forgive my French, and now you're like, you did what? We're a team. Everybody needs to know how this all fits together. So I want to stop a minute, and I threw out some words that give most people hives. I don't know how many of you, when you hear words like strategy and system and process and framework, you just get hives and you're like, whew, I don't even want, can't go there. So what I want to do in order to take you with me in the rest of this conversation is talk about these words a little bit, because I use them a lot throughout the process. So let's talk for a second about strategy. Here's how I see strategy. It's your Google Maps, if you will. Your strategy is helping you. It's where am I right now? It's helping me understand where am I right now? Where is it that I want to be a year from now, 2 years from now, 5, 10 years from now? What do I imagine that situation being? And what's the path to get there? What's my roadmap to get me from where I am right now to where I want to be? And I can have a strategy that's my business strategy, or I can have a strategy that's a sales strategy or a marketing strategy. But the idea is that it's not just a word, it's actually a roadmap. And so when we adopt that, when we accept that and go, God, this is my map. This is my Google Maps. Thank you for Google Maps. That's what our strategy is. And I want to talk a little bit about framework, because of all the words, to me, this is the ugliest word. I've got to figure out another one. But a framework sets parameters for you, right? So if I am a whole team of marketing and sales and product development and all of these people working together, they need to be working within a certain group of parameters. The guideposts. So my framework can tell me, for instance, if I have a framework around communication, my framework tells me these are the people we communicate with, here's how we communicate with them, and here's what we communicate with them about. It's a framework that helps me be effective in my work. And what you can't see me do is that I'm building a square fence around my world with my hands, because that's what a framework does for me. It helps me to work within the most effective place. And so when I use the word framework, that is a structure that helps support my and my team's success. And then a process is, for me, magical. A process tells me what are the steps that get me from here to here. So if it's my sales process, it tells me what is the critical path to success. I have to make sure I do this, and this, and this, and this. And when I leave out a step, I have a problem. So when we build process, it helps us make sure that we hit the critical parameter or the critical steps that need to happen, and we don't miss anything. It makes our path more direct. It makes us more effective. It saves us time. We don't waste time doing things that aren't part of our critical path. So process is super powerful. And we, sometimes as salespeople, we're like, oh, process, systems, frameworks, leave me alone. But when we really get excited about these things and we accept them, we recognize it's helping me set priorities. It's helping me save time. It's keeping me focused on what matters, and it's making me more money. And then a system, that last word, is all how different pieces fit together to make a system that works, to make me as a salesperson or me as a sales organization or as a company effective. So hopefully you guys feel better about those words now as we move further into sales operating system. So when I talk about a sales operating system, these are the 4 pieces that I see. The top is strategy, and I often put strategy and frameworks together. The next part is systems, right? And then systems and processes, and then management. Because if I have this strategy that tells me where I'm going, and I have my systems that tell me how I do it, if nobody's managing it, it's going to fall apart. And then I have assessment. Assessment is the part where we stop regularly and go, are we going the right direction? Are we doing it the right way? Are pieces missing? Are things falling apart? And what do we need to change and fix in the strategy, systems, and management to make this the sales operating system work better? So those are the 4 things that we're going to talk about. I want to start with positioning, because positioning is based on our strategy. So if we're thinking about a sales operating system and we're thinking about strategy, we want to have our strategy to help us position ourselves to be successful. So let's talk about strategy and framework for a second. And I just saw I have a typo, so forgive me. I'm so sorry about that. But the first thing is having a strategic plan for your company or a business strategy. So the idea is, again, how do I get from here to here? What are the things that are most important? What is my vision? What values help us make sure that we stay on path for what we're doing? What is our mission as an organization? How are we positioned to do this? What are our goals? Because this high level plan helps us build everything out underneath it that supports it. The next thing that I think of when I think about a sales operating system is a sales strategy. And what I always say is, numbers are not a strategy. So telling your sales team you're going to hit $10 million this year is not a strategy. It's a number. And in order for your sales team to hit that number, they need to know how to prioritize. They need to know what's important, what's not. They need to know who, what, where, when, how. They need to know which products we're focusing on, how much is coming from new business and from existing business. How much is coming from this product or this region or that region or this sales rep or that sales rep? So when I have all this information and I built it out into a plan, my salespeople know exactly what to do, and they are not wasting time on things that don't matter. And then the next one I think is really important when you're talking about positioning is a sales positioning framework. And that includes things like, 1, starting with my vision and my mission, but also who is my ideal customer? As companies, we waste a tremendous amount of time on people who are not our ideal customer. And I don't want to go into it in great depth now, but what I will tell you is one of the most expensive things that you can do as a company is to waste time on the wrong customers. So understanding who our ideal customer is, understanding where we fit into the marketplace, how we want to be positioned and perceived by our customers, and then our value proposition, which is really important. What problem do we solve? And I like to turn it around. How does my customer describe their problem? How do I solve it? And how am I the best solution for my ideal customer? That's your positioning framework. And then the communication framework, I think, is equally important. And we talked about this a little bit before. Who am I talking to? What matters to them? How do I communicate with them? And what do I say? These are guideposts. These are things that give us priorities and goals and structure that make us effective and efficient. So now that we have that, I want to talk a little bit about if that's where we're trying to go, and that's the highest level, our strategic level, our strategy. Let's talk about building the rest of the sales operating system that supports that high level strategy. So I want to again put this together for you as one system. So we create a strategy that will drive revenue. We build systems that support the strategy. We guide the systems and the team to execute the strategy, and we analyze the systems and then make them better in order to achieve our strategy. When I put it that way, I hope that makes sense to you about why these pieces are so important. Something just went wrong. Okay, there we go. So we talked about strategy. Let's talk about systems and process. So we asked earlier, and most of you have, let's see, I can see it right now. 50% of you have a lead generation process. That is fabulous. Now I want you to think about your lead generation process in the context of your business strategy and your sales strategy. Are you generating the right kinds of leads that are going to bring the right sales through, or the right customers through the sales process to become sales, to become closed business? So go back and look at that lead generation process that you've made and put it in that context so that you have a process that supports your strategy. And then we need a sales process. That is the process that tells us from prospect through qualify, through cultivating the relationship, and then closing the business, and then close won and close lost. Exactly what steps happen when, what materials do we use, what activities need to happen, what are the rules to move something from qualify to cultivate, and exactly how do we all communicate about this sales process so that we're using the same language, and that when the leaders of the organization look at the funnel or look at the CRM, they actually understand what it means. And we don't have one person using the language one way and somebody else using the language the other way, because now when we're all following the same process and using the same language in the same way, we can effectively help each other move business through the funnel or qualify out those that are not ideal customers that we don't want to be working with. We need an opportunity management process, which is how do we make sure that leads are flowing through the funnel properly. And we need a hiring and onboarding process. And you guys told me about 20% of you have that. I would say that is a super important in terms of using money wisely as a leader. That hiring and onboarding process is critical. And if you are a salesperson and you are not being onboarded and you don't have a clear process, ask for help, because your success depends upon that onboarding process. The next step is management. So again, having a process and not managing it means that it will, I promise you, it will fall apart. So you do all this work, and I can't tell you how many times I've worked with people who've built a 50-page strategic plan. It took them 4 days. They paid a lot of money, and then they folded it up and put it on the shelf and never looked at it again. That's not managing a process, and it's a tremendous waste of time and money. So we never want to do that. What we want to do is make sure that when we create the strategy and the processes and the systems, that they're being managed. And when we're talking about sales operating system, the things that I think are most important is making sure you have a really clear process for sales meetings. And I wonder, I'm going to throw this question out for you guys to think about, how many of you are consistent about what you do in your sales meeting? Do your salespeople know exactly what's going to happen, how they should be prepared, what the outcomes need to be, what they're supposed to do afterwards? Or do they come to the sales meeting and go, wonder what's going to happen today? It should be consistent, and expectations should be clear. And the other thing about a sales meeting process is that everybody in the meeting should be engaged. It is not the time to do what's at the bottom here, which is a funnel review. We'll talk about in a second. The second thing is a coaching process. Salespeople need coaching. We all need coaching. And if you are all alone in your business by yourself and you have no one to coach you, find a sales coach. I have a sales coach. I have somebody to do the funnel review process with me. We all need help. So as a sales leader, when you're building your sales operating system, make sure there's a process that coaches. And coaching is a positive process in which we help people learn to solve problems. It is not a process where we tell them what to do. We need an evaluation process. How do I make sure that my sales team is getting better and better, and that I can identify people that don't belong as part of my sales team because they're costing me money, they're not making money, they're unhappy, let's get rid of them. So we've got to be able to evaluate and develop our sales team. And then the funnel review process is the most important part for me. And that is the part where we go through every single stage in the funnel at least once a month with every member of our team and make sure that it's working properly. What happens in most companies, and leaders are really, really guilty of this, is they're only focused on what's closing now. What's closing this month? What's closing this quarter? I don't want to talk about anything else. that means that you're not following your sales process, you're missing critical steps, and you're putting focus in the wrong place. We need to make sure that we are constantly moving leads through the funnel, and everyone needs to be focused on that. And I actually have other webinars and articles that talk about that if you're interested in that. And then assessment, really quickly, a funnel assessment. You know, what I should be able to look at that funnel, look at that CRM, and know exactly what's going on in my company. I need to assess the system, make sure everything's working. There's no places where it breaks down. I need to assess the team and make sure they're the right people in the right place doing the right thing. And I need to make sure that the leadership is doing the right thing. One of my friends who's a consultant was talking to a company leader one time, and he said, "Hey, I want you to fire my entire sales team. They all are terrible." And the guy said, "Well, okay. And then what do you want me to do next time?" And he said, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Well, the next time you want me to fire your entire sales team, what do you want me to do?" And the guy was shocked, and he's like, "Look, if your entire sales team is doing a terrible job, then they're not the problem. You are." And this is where a sales operating system really comes to play, because it helps us make sure that all of the right pieces are in place to support the success of the sales organization, and that the leadership is using those tools as well as the team. So I don't know, John, if you need to jump in. I'm just kind of plowing through so we have time for questions, but I want to talk a little bit about managing your team. So the implementation of a sales operating system is really critical. So first, you've got to create all the pieces, the strategy, the systems, the processes. That takes time, and it's not something you necessarily know how to do. That I spend my entire day, every day, helping people create those systems, those processes, those strategies. So, you know, if you need help, there are definitely articles and books and people who can help you. A great book is The E-Myth, is a great place to start, just thinking about the idea of systems. The next thing is you have to teach everybody in your organization what the sales operating system is, what the strategies are, and how they're involved. And the next thing is to set expectations. This is what you're expected to do. This is when you're expected to do it. These are the consequences if you don't do it. Then everybody in the organization needs to use the tools, the systems, the processes that we're talking about. And I just said something, so I want to take a second and just say, a lot of times when I use the word sales operating system, people think I mean technology. And what I want you to know is that technology are the tools that support the sales operating system that you create. And they're great tools, like your CRM is a tool, a technology that supports your sales operating system. So next is to make sure everybody's using it, from the CEO to the accounting office. Everybody's looking at it. The production team is looking at what's happening in the sales funnel to make sure they're doing the right things. And the final thing is to reinforce. The moment you stop reinforcing, people will stop doing it. And the only people that will do it are the people that do it naturally, because it makes them successful. So once you create your systems, you've got to reinforce it. And if you're by yourself, if you have your own company, I actually pay somebody to make sure I follow my processes. So I created them. I have my funnel, use my Nimble, go through the whole process, right? I know how to do it, but then I don't look at it, or I forget to do something, or I miss a step. And I have somebody who actually helps me make sure that I am not missing steps, that I'm doing all the pieces, that it's getting on my calendar. So that's what a sales operating system is, how to position yourself for success, and how to implement it. And what I want to say is that what we need to remember is that your sales operating system is not static. This is something that changes. And I will tell you, I work with companies that are 20 and 30 years old, and all of a sudden they're like, what we've been doing all these years is not working anymore. I'm like, well, because you're still using the same strategies, systems, processes, messaging you were using 20 years ago. It has to change and grow with you. And so what I do with these companies is I go in and I help them recreate all of these things to support their success, and the success is a natural result of that. The other thing that's really important to understand is that if you're going to go in and create a sales operating system or revise your sales operating system, what you're creating is a cultural shift. This does not just happen naturally. people they need to understand why, they need to understand how, they need it reinforced, they need to be reminded. So if you're going to put the investment into creating this system with all the steps and pieces, you have to remember, whether it's you by yourself or whether you've got a team of 2 or 20 or 1,000, they have to keep being reminded until that new culture becomes the norm for them. And what's the result? Really quickly, this is my favorite part. Like, why would you do this? This is so much work I just described. So why would you do it? Because if you do it, you will have a predictable revenue stream, and that is powerful. The other reasons you do it is because you will be able to manage the seemingly unmanageable. You'll have fewer mistakes and fewer fires, and hallelujah, more sales revenue, which is what we all want. So Jon, that is my presentation, and I know you guys have had some questions along the way. So Jon, take over and tell me what you want to do next.
Okay, well, first off, Liz, that was great. Thank you so much. I think it's important for us all to be reminded of the basics. I think it's the basics that wins games, and understanding the core processes around how your company generates, engages, closes, and then gets repeat business from its leads is critical to its success. But before we do that, let's do a little housekeeping. You have a slide of an offer.
Yes. So I have 2 offers for you. The first is that anybody who is on this webinar, I would be happy to have a conversation with you about your sales operating system. Where are you now? What would you need to do to build one? What's working, what's not working? It's completely free. There's no obligation. Just get on the phone with me. And there's a link right there. I don't know how they get that link, but I love having these conversations, and I love helping people. So please feel free to schedule that time with me, and let's talk about what would it take to get you a sales operating system or a sales strategy that takes you where you want to go. And the second is downloads. So the presentation that I just gave was really fast. I know it was a lot of information in a very short period of time, but I have a sales operating system guide that talks about all of the things I just talked about in more depth with the slides from this presentation and more slides and more information. So if you'd like that, this link, and I'm not sure whether this link takes you to download or whether it takes you to my website where you can download it. But in either case, I encourage you to do that, because all of the slides, everything you need is right there, and all the information that you need about the different pieces is in there as well.
Awesome. And with that, let's go and do some Q&A.
You want to do your offer?
Yes, of course. Let me see.
Your offer is a free 30-day trial of Nimble. If you go to nimble.com, offers /webinar 30.
So for those of you who have not become a subscriber of Nimble or even tried Nimble yet, I encourage you to do so, because ultimately you need a platform for your processes, and Nimble is unique in its ability to help you build relationships. So go to nimble.com, sign up for a trial, and if you do decide that you are benefiting from it and want to subscribe, you get 40% off your first 3 months by using the code Jon40. Thank you for the reminder, and let's go.
Before you jump, I just want to reinforce that. So when you create your sales process, and it includes communicating with people, emailing, and checking in with them on Twitter and LinkedIn, and doing all of these things that help to grow and cultivate that relationship, there is no other tool that does it like Nimble does. It is an amazing tool that helps you to not just keep track of your leads and remembering what your next activity is, but helping you identify opportunities to cultivate the relationship. So, sorry, my little piece in there.
I love the plug. Thank you, Liz. So on to Q&A. We had a lot of really great questions. One of them was from Sergio. Please spell the name of the sales system book that you recommended.
Okay, the book that I recommended is called The E-Myth. And it's not just sales systems, it's systems in general about your company. And it will get you started thinking about the ideas of system and process in a more general way. It's a great book. Any entrepreneur should read it. I've read it 3 or 4 times. It's capital E dash myth, MYTH, and it's written by Michael Gerber. And actually, I think it's called the E-Myth Revisited, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay.
No worries. And then the next question was, okay. Let me know if you guys can see my screen. This is the book, E-Myth Revisited. Can you see my screen, Liz?
I'm not seeing it.
Okay. For some reason, it is not going. Oh, well.
Well, while you're trying to get that, let me tell you the other book that we talked about is called Strategic Selling, and it's written by Steve Heiman and Bob Miller. And that was the original book that talked about putting process around sales. And while the examples are way out of date, the information and the systems in the book are amazing. And this is me plugging my dad's work, but truly I meet people every day at conferences who say that book changed my life. That training completely changed the way I sell and how much money I make. So that's another book you might look for. It's called Strategic Selling. So when I still don't see the screen.
Yeah, Nettie's going to help me with that.
All right.
It's a screen difficulty day. Then the next question was, can you comment on good strategies for the sales team to close the deals more efficiently?
So I can, but you're not going to like my answer. Okay, so what I really believe is the best sales hacks for closing deals start at the beginning of the sales process. So what happens is we skip steps and we rush and we don't follow the process, and then we expect it to close at the end. The close is a natural result of doing the work all the way through. So by building that sales process and making sure that we ask all the right questions, and one of the most important questions we need to ask and ask and ask is, what is the process for buying this? Who needs to be involved? Who do I need to talk to? Who needs to sign up? How does the money get allocated, right? Understanding that and making sure you communicate with all of the buyers about their concerns, their objections, their worries, their needs. Those are the things that make the close come naturally. It's when we skip those critical steps in the sales process that we're like, I don't understand why that didn't close. I don't know why the competitor got it. If I asked all those questions and followed the process, I would know the competitor was going to get it, right? Because I've talked to all the right people about all the right things. I hope that helps answer it. I know it probably wasn't what you were expecting, but.
And then we have another question. Are you related to Stephen Heiman?
Yes, Steve is my dad. And so I literally grew up in the world of sales, and I was going to go off and be an international world negotiator. And here I am, I'm a sales expert because I guess it's in the blood. But yes, Steve is my dad, and he's alive and well, and living part of the year in Hawaii and loving life and playing golf.
Nice. Tell him that we all thank him for coming up with that book. Another question from Tony Fogarty. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between handling new business in your process and repeat business with existing customers?
Yeah, so I really believe that particularly with key accounts, some of us have existing accounts that can make up like 4 or 5 accounts that make up 80% of our business. In some cases, it's one account. Those accounts each need a strategy. So somebody needs to be focused on growing the relationships, expanding the relationships, talking to more people, getting ahead. So one of the things I talk about is being proactive about selling. What happens with our existing accounts often is we wait for them to order from us instead of getting ahead and figuring out What have they identified as their initiatives? What problems are they dealing with? What's happening in the world around them? And how do I help them get ahead of those problems, so that I know what I should be selling them, not today when they're ordering, but 6, 8 months from, maybe 2 years from now, right? So there's actually a process around that, identifying all the buyers, and I have articles about that. But it's a process of understanding. And what I will tell you is there's a certain amount of that you can do with all of your clients, but you have to decide which ones you're willing to really invest time in. New customers, it's a different process because you are learning about them from the very beginning. So one of the most important things, depending upon how complex your sale is, you want to make sure that you're communicating with all of the buyers that you need to communicate with. So when I start a new relationship and start selling, one of my first questions again is who's involved in the buying process and how do I communicate with them? What are they worried about, and how can I help the person I'm talking to communicate with them about solving those problems? So what happens in new accounts where there are multiple buyers, and this also happens in existing accounts, we tend to talk to 1 or 2 people, and it's not enough. Now, if there's only 1 or 2 people in the sale, then great. Make sure you're communicating with both of those people all of the time and not relying, I call it my guy selling, relying on my guy. My guy's taking care of it. Your guy isn't sufficient to take care of it if there's 15 people involved in the buying process. So, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that number. So those are, if that's helpful, that's kind of what's important, is making sure you're talking to all the people, understanding what their concerns are, and helping them solve problems, regardless of whether they're existing clients or new clients.
Perfect. Somebody mentioned that the 40% off coupon is not working. We will check into that and email everybody after we have checked it to make sure that it is or is not working. Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Ken. Another question was, do we have any training webinars for certain businesses? I'm a real estate contractor, and the model is quite different from other companies with staff. Christine, thank you so much for asking the question. Yes, we have done industry-specific webinars. We do plan to do additional ones in the future. We will be doing a real estate one as the first one, as a matter of fact, coincidentally, and we'll send you a link to that when we're doing that. In the meantime, Nettie, if you could find the previous real estate one that we may have done in the past and share that, that'd be great. Stuart had a question. Would love to be able to schedule emails. Sometimes I'm doing work and it's not the right time of day to send it. Would love to send it in the right time frame. Stuart, thanks for asking. That is definitely on our Nimble roadmap. Can you, I try to find decision makers on LinkedIn, Michael asks. What's the best way to vet the prospect in conjunction with your system? Michael, I had asked you, when you say vet, does that mean building a contact record or finding the decision maker, or both? Because ultimately, if you're vetting people, decision makers, first you have to figure out, what company you're targeting, who are the decision makers at that company, and then how to build a record that includes their contact info for you to be able to reach out to them. And Nimble does all these things. And because I can't share my screen right now, I'm not going to be able to demonstrate that for you. But it is very easy to do with our Nimble Prospector add-in for your browser. And Nedia will share a link in the chat window about how to use the Prospector so that you can read up on that.
And John, just let me add really quickly, in terms of your sales operating system, part of what you want to use, if this is what you're asking, part of the vetting process is making sure that they match your ideal customer profile, that they share the same values that you share. So you can look on LinkedIn and find out a lot about a company and decide whether that's worth pursuing or not, whether they fit into your model, or whether they're probably not going to be a good fit. Yeah.
And sometimes you want to look beyond LinkedIn to determine that if that person is actually somebody you might want to do business with.
Absolutely.
There's another one from Leo, and Leo asked, actually, this question wasn't the one that Leo was asking. There was a separate question that Leo asked, and it was, bear with me, because it was a really good question. I think it was along the lines of what's the best way to fill your funnel with leads? And here's the question. Lead gen marketing are often the same bucket with small companies. Getting qualified leads into the system framework is often the most significant challenge that companies need to overcome. And my answer to that, in short, because we only have 4 minutes, is there's a lot of ways you could generate leads, and a lot of people use ad spend to generate leads. We don't do that at Nimble. We're generating about 75,000 uniques per month on our website with zero ad spend. And we do that through a combination of influencer marketing, social content, and guerrilla PR. And to get specific about exactly how to do that, I could share that really in 30 seconds. You want to become the trusted advisor of your prospect, your customer, and their influencers as well. And you can do that best by giving your knowledge away, because you've forgotten more about your products and services in your industry than your customers will ever know in their life. And if you give your knowledge away on a daily basis, you will become their trusted advisor. And when they want your products or services, they'll pick up the phone and call you, and they'll drag their friends with them. So how do you do that if you don't like to write stuff, which I don't, I'm a math computer science major, is I go and find other people's content that inspires and educates me in and around the areas of promise my product and services, which is social sales and marketing. So that's actually how Liz and her sister Alice and I got connected, because Liz and Alice, her sister, are thought leaders in social sales and marketing. I share their content, I attribute their names, hashtag it appropriately. And not only does that build relationships with their community, but also with them themselves and anybody looking to be better, smarter, faster in those areas, social sales and marketing, which then I could build relationships and leads through those connections and conversations. And so this is scalable, it's repeatable. And Leo asked, do we do a webinar on that? And pretty much every webinar we do, we talk about that. But we do have specific webinars about how to do this exactly. And Nadia, if you could share that also in the chat box or in the follow-up email, that would be great. Liz, do you have any feedback or thoughts on lead gen processes?
Well, I just, again, the idea that your lead gen should follow your strategy. And so part of lead gen is being creative. So if this is who my ideal customer is, then where are they and how do I talk to them? What's the best way to reach them? Are they on Facebook? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they, at conferences? Where are they? And then I can make decisions about how I'm spending my resources toward reaching them where they are. That's how you bring leads in the top of the funnel. A lot of us spend time throwing out content and hoping somebody finds it, but we're not necessarily even putting it out in the right places. So that's really key, is understanding who your ideal customer is and where they are.
Perfect. And with that, I think that we are a wrap. First, I want to thank everybody for their kind attendance. We will follow up on the 40% off, verify whether it is or is not working, and share that link, because we have a number of people that want to make use of that. Thank you so much. Liz, it's always a pleasure to connect with you and your family. I love your wisdom and your heart, and thanks for sharing that with us today.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me. It's nice to meet all of you. I look forward to you guys connecting with me or scheduling so I can get to know you personally.
And please do connect with us. You can find us easily. We're in the slides. My email is jon@nimble.com. You can Google me, Jon Ferrara, Ferrara. You'll find me. That's actually something I recommend you do for yourself. Google yourself, because your customers will, and you want to show up on the first page. Last tip, build a Wikipedia page for yourself. It will show up always on the right-hand side, and you can control the information. Nadia, thank you so much for having the floor and our backs in this presentation. And to all of you, I send you off with a hug and a prayer for peace and love. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.